You suddenly stop replying to people you once cared about, and strangely, your mind finally felt quiet and peaceful. But that relief raises a confusing psychological question. Why does stress sometimes make people disappear from relationships? Most people assume isolation means something is deeply broken, but psychology suggests a very different explanation entirely. Sometimes cutting people off is your brain protecting itself, and once you understand it, everything begins making sense. Because hidden beneath this behavior is a powerful pattern, a survival response your nervous system learned long ago. Today we will unpack the real psychology behind it, and why stressed people suddenly walk away from everyone. When stress overloads the human brain, stress rarely explodes suddenly without warning or explanation. Instead, it slowly accumulates through repeated emotional pressure. Small frustrations stack quietly inside the nervous system, until one day your mind demands distance and silence. At first, you still try being the dependable one, the listener who absorbs everyone's worries without complaint. You answer messages late at night without hesitation, because helping others once felt meaningful and important. But something strange eventually begins happening inside you. Conversations start feeling heavier than they used to. The emotional noise becomes harder for your brain, and your mind quietly begins craving psychological space. The nervous system's hidden protection mode. Here is where neuroscience becomes extremely fascinating. Your nervous system constantly scans environments for emotional safety. When stress crosses a certain biological threshold, the brain automatically activates a protective response. Instead of staying socially engaged, your body conserves energy. You respond less frequently and withdraw from interaction. Not because you dislike people or connection, but because your system is preventing further overload. Think of it like your phone entering power-saving mode. The device still works, but unnecessary functions. Pause. Your brain does something surprisingly similar during stress. It protects energy by reducing demanding social activity. Why some people develop stronger boundaries. But here's where the story becomes interesting. Not everyone responds to stress in the same way. Some people tolerate chaos much longer than others, while others recognize draining patterns incredibly early. Often this awareness develops through years of observation. People who experienced emotional unpredictability learn patterns quickly. They notice tone shifts, subtle manipulation, and hidden tension. Their brain becomes extremely skilled at reading behavior. So when something feels emotionally unsafe or exhausting, their internal alarm system activates much faster. To outsiders, it looks like sudden distance or coldness, but internally, it feels like necessary protection. The difference between walls and boundaries. However, there is an important psychological distinction here. Not every form of distance protects your well-being. Sometimes people build emotional walls from pure fear, and those walls block healthy relationships too. Boundaries work differently than defensive emotional walls. Walls isolate you from everyone, including supportive people. Boundaries simply filter who deserves access to your energy. They create space without destroying meaningful connection. Here's the simple test psychologists often mention. After cutting someone off, what emotion appeared first? If you felt calm relief, that is valuable information. Your brain likely escaped a draining dynamic. Why peace can feel strangely unfamiliar. Interestingly, many people feel confused by that relief because society constantly praises large social circles. We are told connection must always be constant, and distance automatically signals loneliness or failure. But solitude and loneliness are psychologically different experiences. Loneliness means missing connection you deeply want. Solitude means intentionally choosing quiet mental space. One drains you while the other restores energy. Sometimes peace only appears after chaos disappears, and that silence can initially feel unfamiliar. But your brain recognizes something important. In that moment, life suddenly feels calmer, lighter, and easier to navigate. A quiet approach to personal growth. Real growth rarely arrives through dramatic motivational moments. Instead, it appears through small decisions protecting mental energy. Choosing healthier environments, choosing calmer conversations, choosing space. Those quiet decisions reshape your psychological landscape slowly. Instead of forcing constant productivity or endless social effort, your brain benefits from simple systems that protect focus. Growth compounds quietly when your environment supports clarity. That is the quiet philosophy behind quiet growth. How to decide who deserves access. The real question, therefore, is not avoiding people forever. The question is deciding who deserves your attention. Healthy relationships usually leave you feeling lighter afterward. Draining ones leave your mind tense and exhausted. Pay attention to consistent behavioral patterns over time. Notice who respects boundaries without guilt or pressure. Notice who listens rather than only taking energy. Your nervous system recognizes these differences quickly. Once you start observing relationships this way, your social circle often becomes naturally smaller, but the quality of connection improves dramatically, and emotional stability becomes far easier to maintain. The psychological closed loop. So if you recently distanced yourself from certain people, it does not automatically mean something is wrong. Sometimes stress simply forced your brain to reset, and that reset created room for clarity. Your mind was never designed for endless emotional chaos. It evolved to protect energy and maintain balance. Once you recognize that pattern, your choices change. You begin protecting peace before burnout arrives. And moving forward, the rule becomes surprisingly simple. Keep the people who respect your calm presence. Release the ones who constantly disturb your stability. Because protecting peace is not isolation, it is wisdom.